Let's get you to unmute, Your Worship.
That would work. Good evening, members of council, administration, and those who are streaming from the comfort of home. Welcome to our regular council meeting of March the 8th. And with that, roll call. All members of council are here and counted. So I will call the meeting to order. We did report out at an earlier meeting that we did have a closed meeting, and that was reported at our 6:15 meeting. Usually we waive our moment of silence, but I'm going to make an exception tonight in lieu of what's transpiring in the Ukraine. We're in the cups of a European war, and I just think we owe it to the Ukrainian people and those involved in this conflict, obviously to keep them certainly in our thoughts and certainly in our prayers. And also keep in mind as well is that our fire chief who lost his mom just recently, to keep certainly Chief Bondi and his family in your thoughts and prayer. And so as many have said that today, the world, we stand united with our friends in the Ukraine. So Slava Ukraine, we are Ukraine, and keep them certainly in your thoughts and certainly in your prayers. And as Canada will soon be opening up its doors to thousands of Ukrainian refugees, and I'm sure that there'll be many heading into the Windsor Essex region, as we do have a large Ukrainian Canadians that are situated here. So with that, let's take 30 seconds and collect our thoughts on them. Thank you. We did make a land acknowledgement that was read out during our quarter revision meeting earlier this evening. So to the members present, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda is presented to you this evening. Hearing none, that will be duly noted. We'll move on to minutes. We do have the regular council meeting of February 22nd, 2022. We have the public council meeting, also February 2022, ZBA on 6067 Walker Road. Our public council meeting, February 22, our ZBA at 1401 and 1429 Lesbros Road. And special council meeting of February 22nd, 2022, our digital strategy business continuity strategy. So a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Councilor Tonio, Deputy Mayor Bichetti, on those minutes, any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. We have no supplementary agenda items to worry about this evening, members of council. So we'll go straight to delegations, and gives me a great pleasure to have our friends from the Essex Region Conservation Authority, our transition plan, and also to present their also the annual report. With us, we have Mr. Tim Burney. He's the Chief Administrative Officer and Secretary Treasurer. And we have Tanya Jobin, our Chair, and Mr. Kieran McKenzie, our Vice Chair. And so I will relinquish the floor to them and welcome them to our proceedings this evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Privileged to again appear in front of Tecumseh Council. My Vice Chair will duly represent the Conservation Authority with some prepared words to share with council.
Thank you. Vice Chair McKenzie.
Thank you, Worship. In fact, I think it was going to be the chair that was going to offer comments to your council this evening. I know she's a colleague, but I think that's how we set it up. So maybe we can.
My apologies. I stand corrected.
It's okay. I was just going to ask who's on first.
That's it. I was, I could get into that bit with you as well, Your Worship, but instead, why don't we just allow for the chair to offer comments?
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Go ahead, Councilor Tobin.
Well, I appreciate it. Seeing that it's Women's Day, I for sure will go first. Just kidding. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Your Worship, members of council and administration. On behalf of the Essex Region Conservation Authority, thank you for this opportunity for us to be able to provide our conservation highlights from this past year and an overview of our transition plan as required by province of Ontario and discuss our 2022 budget. As you already disclosed, I'm very pleased to be joined by Tim Burney, our CEO and Secretary Treasurer, and our Vice Chair, Kieran McKenzie. As well joining us is James Bryant. He's the Director of Watershed and Management Services. And I can't help but acknowledge as well Deputy Mayor Joe Bicchetti, who sits on the board, and he once served as past chair of IRCA. I'd like to provide some brief information about IRCA's transition plan, which was forwarded to your municipality, in December. This plan is required as part of Bill 229 and outlines timelines associated with compliance with the recently released regulations. Some of the important deliverables identified in this transition plan have already been accomplished within the 2022 budget, which is transparent, detailed, and provides clarity as to what programs and services are funded by our local tax levy. A detailed inventory of mandatory and non-mandatory services can be found in our budgeted document received by your municipality in February. In short, mandatory services include programming related to natural hazards, protection and provision of passive recreation at conservation areas, drinking water source protection, and the enabling services to provide these programs. While the program details are outlined comprehensively within the provided budget, I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight a few of the areas. This budget includes an emphasis on improving building and maintaining conservation areas for the public, especially the significant historical resources of the John R. Park Homestead, which have been entrusted to us to preserve in perpetuity. The budget also continues to address the significant increased external demands and legislated responsibilities of development and corporate services staff. It further includes the urgent updates of our data system and workflows to improve security, efficiency, and customer-facing services. The draft 2022 budget totals over $9 million with the total levy funding of $3.5 million. This represents an increase of about 2.5%, equaling over $85,000. This equals an increase to $26.15 per household based on an assessed value of $300,000 or 26 cents per household. In the town of Tecumseh, based on the CVA apportionment, the requested increase amounts to 1.8% or $5,269. In accordance with the transition plan, before the end of 2023, IRCA will need to enter into agreements with participating municipalities where municipal support is needed to fund non-mandatory services. It's important to emphasize that historically, the local investment of levy and municipal special project funding for services that the province has categorized as non-mandatory has been matched dollar for dollar, if not exceeded. Between 2017 and 2021, IRCA received municipal funds just over $9.7 million for non-mandatory projects and programs. During that time, non-municipal funds of $9.9 million were received to support those very same initiatives. This financial benefit is in addition to the vital impacts that these services have in improving watershed health. It's widely recognized that conservation authorities play a critical role in protecting our environment, our natural heritage, mitigating hazards, and supporting municipal partners by providing an environmental conservation and risk assessment lens on our development. As an elected official, I too believe that if we want our Windsor-Essex community to continue to be a place of choice to live, work, and invest in, we need to ensure we're working together collaboratively to protect and restore our natural environment. In my opinion, the types of resource management programming offered by IRCA are most effectively and efficiently provided regionally and on an integrated watershed management basis. On behalf of our entire board, we look forward to continuing to work with you and your administration and staff to negotiate the municipal agreement as required and identified within the transition plan. It's only through collaboration that we can collectively ensure that our Windsor-Essex region becomes resilient and sustainable. We're also pleased to report and present to you this evening a brief video of 2021's report, which highlights the conservation projects, programs, and services provided in the past year. Before we do so, I'm going to thank you for this time that you've taken for us to present to you this evening. But I do hope I just would like to acknowledge one thing specifically. On the February 8th meeting, Councillor Dowie had addressed a mandatory and non-mandatory question, which I did relay to the board and the executive committee, in which we are prepared to respond to you this evening. Your question was, would the services be provided at an a la carte basis, or would municipalities be able to determine the mandatory and non-mandatory? And for that, I have Mr. Burney who can respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councillor Dowie, Your Worship. Our programming, as Madam Chair has identified, is a fully integrated program. We deal with things on a watershed basis. Our Premier and our sitting members of Parliament have asked conservation authorities to go through their suite of programming and be transparent in what is being provided on a watershed basis, based on local determinations by their member municipalities. We were further instructed to say certain sets of your programming are mandatory, for which you can levy municipalities for. Other ongoing programming will be the subject of contribution agreements, which you will need to make arrangements for through memorandums of understanding with your municipalities. Activities that occur within this region, development activities, natural heritage activities, affect the entire watershed. The Ruscombe River starts in Leamington and courses through Lakeshore. Pike Creek starts up in Essex and then courses through Tecumseh. River Canard starts in Kingsville, makes its way through Essex, LaSalle, and Amherstburg, and Windsor through tributary outlets into the River Canard. We are connected by our watersheds, by our waterways. So our programming, although majority of our programming, over 70 some odd percent, being mandatory, there is still 20 some odd percent that is not. But those initiatives, such as private land tree planting, outreach services, education services, clean water, green spaces, natural heritage plan review on the part of municipalities, all of those initiatives and what have you are tied together with our role in integrated watershed planning, and it all functions as in unity. So we would fail if we ever came forward any kind of an a la carte, pick this one, pick that one, pick the other, because the basis of this programming is delivered on a regional basis. We, though, as staff, have been instructed by our board, as ordered by the province, through this transitional planning year, to come to terms with, how we offer this programming, and to meet with each and every municipality to say, here's our programming, here's how we offer it, here's how it's historically been accounted for or paid for, here's what we're looking at for the future. Another interesting thing, though, about our non-mandatory services, as the budget and credit, I really have to hand a lot of credit to my CFO, Shelley McMullen. It is a wonderful piece of work, and it is amazing in its transparency. And even an old farm boy from Woodsley can look at it and understand it. But as we move forward with it, and as we move forward with these discussions, we have to look at it from a business perspective. And if 2 or 3 municipalities or one municipality, whatever else, doesn't want this, we want to do this. Well, then we have to meet with all municipalities to say, here's the services that can be provided. Here's the cost to provide those services. Here's how we can do it. To date, on our non-mandatory services, as Shelley has, taken great pains to point out, there's as much as a 4-to-1 return on the taxpayer dollar to the delivery of those services. So that's as short as I can make it, Madam Chair and Your Worship. And again, it's not meant to be a sales pitch, it's a statement of fact. And the 222 budget analysis and recommendation outlines that. And I look forward to working with you and your staff on moving ahead and ultimately making those determinations on how we proceed through this year.
Thank you, Mr. Burney.
Myself as well. Thank you, Mr. Burney. If there isn't anything further, we do have the annual report video that we can play.
Hang on, Councillor Jobin. Go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to our IRCA representation. Thank you very much. For the I guess the prelude to what will be now the annual report video. But I just wanted to clarify, please. I noted. Did I hear it was 2315? The levy increase was noted as 2315 increase for a 300K assessment. But there was some other value noted there on cents. I just, if Councillor Jobin doesn't mind just repeating that, it'd be appreciated.
Certainly. Were you referring to the CVA, which is 1.8%? So the total of the municipality is 5,269. Oh,
No,
you
no,
mean
just-
the per household was $26.15 per household, based on an assessed value of $300,000.
I'm sorry, 26
$15.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I think it's noted in the appendix E as 2315, not a big deal. I just noticed a bit of a discrepancy there. So appendix E of the link that's available on the agenda just notes again for that 300K current assessed value of 2315. Not a big deal, but I wanted to check on those numbers, make sure they're consistent.
And I appreciate you bringing that forward, and we will look into that and have a response.
No troubles. The $3 isn't that big of a deal. I wanted to, make sure we got the numbers right. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, fantastic. If we can, Mr. Firth, we can go ahead with the video. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments, members of council to our guests? Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Councillor Jobin, to Tim, to Kieran, and even James for being here. Appreciate all your hard work. I just to build on the question, I know we've had the discussion about Fair Play Woods historically, and what's going to become of that property. Given that it's a wooded area, I would expect that IRCA will play a role in its development, and so I guess I'd ask a question to IRCA. Is that something that's already within your line of business if the municipality were to someday see an avenue to do a partnership that may not be shared with other municipalities? Is that something that would fall under the current system, or is that something that would require the set approval of the board? I'm presuming it does require the approval of the board, but just wanted to verify that something like that remains within your mandate.
Through you, Your Worship, there is every opportunity to make additional agreements with municipalities, especially on properties as significant as Fair Play Woods. And the determination of what can be done will be the subject of an MOU that could be structured and some sort of a partnership with Tecumseh as a special benefiting municipality with respect to Fair Play Woods. We own some 35 properties around the region outright that are the subject of levy. We have other properties that we have management agreements, such as Holiday Beach Conservation Area. Fair Play Woods would fall in the line of that, and we could entertain, subject to the availability of funding, some sort of partnership, some sort of working agreement, some sort of an operating or management agreement, should my board approve that involvement, and then work out those details with the town of Tecumseh.
Thank you. Through Your Worship, a follow-up?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. And I actually just have a comment. I see the tremendous amount of work you've done with the realignment of the mandatory, non-mandatory services, that you're so far ahead of the curve on that process is a testament to the hard work of your staff and all of the board as well. So I just want to send my sincere thanks for doing that, and for really taking a difficult time and making a very productive use of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments to our guests? I certainly want to take this opportunity to also thank our, obviously, Tim, your staff, and certainly Chair, Vice Chair, but also to our rep, Deputy Mayor Bichetti, on the authority. I think there's going to be a huge demand for cooperation. Obviously, as I'm going to speak on behalf of the county, and especially with the new regional energy plan that we've put in play. And I think there's no doubt that there's a huge role for IRCA and in the county, and including the city of Windsor. I think moving forward, as we know, the world's changing dramatically. Climate change is resonating now more and more, to every citizen across not only our region, the country, the province, but the world. And areas of various importance for us. It's Fair Play Woods. I'm glad that Councillor Dowie did bring it up. We know through preliminary investigations in that area, it's very rich in very rare species in southwestern Ontario, but beyond. It's the last large big piece of Carolinian forest in the county, but even beyond, and so forth. So at the end of the day, I get it. There are a lot of pushback from upper levels of government, but and certainly developers and communities. But we're very fortunate to have a conservation authority in our region that works collaboratively with the municipalities. And yeah, sometimes we're not always on the same page, but I think the greater good overcomes any decisions that benefit certainly our region. So I on behalf of Tecumseh, I certainly I'm looking forward to my community to continue to work hand in glove with certainly with the authority. There's a lot of things in the planning stages for us to help mitigate climate change. And again, IRCA is going to play a major role in helping us achieve a reduction in our carbon footprint moving forward. So again, thank you to the board and certainly the staff. And kind of on a personal note, my grandson did spend his internship with IRCA and really enjoyed his time there. And he was very impressed at the quality and the technical people that are out there protecting our waterways and so forth. So I was speaking to him on the weekend, and I said, I'm going to have your IRCA coming to our meeting. And he said, just pass my best regards to Mr. Bernie and certainly all of the staff there and to the board. And so with that, there's no further questions. Again, thank you for coming out. And again, looking forward to continue to improve and increase our partnership as we move forward.
Thank you, Your Worship, council and staff.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
Good evening. All right, members of council, if I could have a motion then to receive the draft budget that was presented by the chair, and also to receive the annual report in the 2022 draft budget. Councilor Tonio, Councilor Altenhoff. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Members of council will then move on to communications. We have 15 pieces of communications. Get a motion to receive. Councilor Dowie and Councilor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Are there any communication piece that council would like to pull? I do have one, and it's the one from the town of Collingwood, the termination of membership of Ontario Municipal Water Association piece. If I could have a motion to defer this to council administration meeting to discuss. I don't know if folks at council had the opportunity to read the summary report from that. I think it's something that needs to be, I think, investigated a little bit more, and to understand the issue at hand from the town of Collingwood, because I firmly believe there are huge lessons to be learned by municipal councils and certainly administration on how they deliver day-to-day business within the corporation. And so if I could have a motion just to refer this to council administration. Deputy Mayor Bichetti and Councilor Altenhoff, questions or comments? Councilor Dowie, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you, Your Worship. So yeah, I did read the piece of correspondence and some of the background materials on this. And so I guess all these were public documents. The individuals at the association would have been knowledgeable of the conclusions. And I wonder, perhaps this will come out of the review by administration, but it appears as if the hiring was done with full knowledge, or it appears to have been done with full knowledge of that background, and they determined that he was the best candidate. And so without knowledge of the interview process or those considerations, this is one that I'm sort of happy to see a review by the administration to support your direction. I wonder whether this is something that it's, I don't say it's too in the weeds, but is it an indication, if we accepted, that we are in turn going to show a lack of confidence in the board that's elected to oversee that organization? So just more questions than anything else, but certainly happy to support your direction to look into this, send this back to administration to report back.
Thank you, Councillor Dowie. Councillor Jobin.
I'm just going to say I'll just support it at that for further investigation, for sure.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jobin. No further questions or comments. Then on the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, communication action required. Members of council, with the Ontario Farmland Trust dated February 22nd, 2022. And it's recommended that the mayor and members of council be authorized to attend the virtual March 23rd, 2022 Farmland Forum at a cost of $50 per person, in accordance to the town's professional development policy and subject to funding in the 2022 budget. On the recommendation, moved by Councillor Jobin, support Councillor Houston. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Move on to committee minutes. We have the Police Services Board, February 10th, 2022, and a motion to accept the board's minutes. Councillor Houston and support Councillor Dowie. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. The town of Tecumseh Business Improvement Area, February 16th, 2022, a motion to accept the Business Improvement Area meeting as duplicated and delivered. Councillor Tonio, move. Support. Councillor Jobin. Questions or comments? Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I know I raised concern before, but I'm noticing it's continuous. Throughout the minutes, there's reference to see agenda attachment, agenda attachment. I've tried to look at both the PDF as well as the kind of the online version without success. I'm just, it's difficult to kind of approve meeting minutes when they don't really contain content of the meeting. So I guess if we could just report back, while I don't expect kind of, all the full text of what happened at that meeting, it should be, provided for some brevity, for us to kind of assess. So I guess that's my concern with this. It's a bit challenging to approve or consider it when we don't have access to, what was really occurring or what happened. So just a point, but if this could be addressed in the future once and for all, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and actually, I'm happy to at least begin to address that. Those reports are available online for just as we can look at previous agendas. These different reports are available. It does take a bit of work to find the meeting date and click on the links, but it is there. But point taken. Perhaps this is something we can take back to the board and in conjunction with our clerk to find a way to make sure those are inserted for the minutes themselves. Because I think there's just maybe just a continued lack of ease with the software that we use relative to the previous protocol. Anyway, I think we could take that back. And I just wanted to just advise on a couple of items that were on this at this meeting. One was you may have noticed the BIA dollars program has not been operating for the last little bit. And that is because the board had looked at the sustainability of the program and the distribution of the program. There were some findings about that. There's a predominant host to most of the receiving dollars, and also predominant regularity of the same people accessing the dollars. So it's felt that the benefits should be spread far and wide, on both sides. And so that program will be relaunched in a slightly different format in mid-year. I believe it's May, if I remember right. And so the program will come back to try out a new format, which will hopefully share the wealth, so to speak. And also, I did want to advise too that the BI is going to participate in the 100th anniversary celebrations. So that was a deliberation at the board meeting as well. So I just wanted to report that back.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dowie. Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and appreciate that. And through you to Councillor Dowie as well as Councillor Houston, thank you very much for that information. Just as a simple suggestion, and I apologize if I just couldn't find, if I was the only one who couldn't find those attachments, but if there's just a simple URL hyperlink that can be provided, similar to what we saw with IRCA, maybe a great way to kind of implement that into this report without making it too lengthy. So thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Okay. On the question, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to reports. First one is our development services, and it's a consent agreement for 3425 11th concession. That's a storm drain conversion to a municipal drain. So I'll call upon our manager, Mr. Jeffrey, to bring that report forward and then bring recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. Through this report, administration is recommending the entering into of agreement with the owners of 3425 11 concession. And if we go to attachment 1, we'll see where that property is located. It's on the west side of 11 Concession Road, just south of its intersection with County Road 42. It's about a 0.5 hectare parcel, and it's outlined here in red. On March 22nd of 2021, the committee approved consent to sever applications B04 to B0621, and they're depicted on attachment number 2. The purpose of those applications was to sever parts 1, outlined in red, 3, outlined in green, and 4, outlined in orange, and to retain part 2, which contains the existing dwelling on the subject property. And as a condition of those severances, the owner was required to service each of the severed lots with separate storm, water, and sanitary services. And those conditions had to be fulfilled by March 26th of this year. So the owner set out to meet those conditions and approached the county to connect to the existing storm drain on the west side of the 11th Concession Road. The county requires that storm drain be converted to a municipal drain before that can be done. So the owner has agreed to this and has submitted a petition for drainage under the Drainage Act to start the process. But due to the timelines under the Drainage Act, the owner will not be able to complete the works prior to the March 26, 22 consent to sever deadline. And if that deadline isn't met, the severances would lapse. So in order to address these discrepancies in timelines, administration in consultation with our solicitor provided the owner with an option of entering into a consent agreement that's before council tonight. And that agreement would ensure that the storm drainage services are installed and enable the owner to meet that condition of severance. The agreement has been signed by the owner. It will be registered against the title of the property to ensure that future owners are made aware of their responsibilities, and all costs related to the preparation of this agreement and its registration will be borne by the owner. So the recommendation, Mr. Mayor, members of council, is that bylaw number 2022-010 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a consent agreement between the corporation of the town of Tecumseh and Dana Azar in accordance with section 5312 and 5126 of the Planning Act and amendments thereto as an alternative means of fulfilling the condition and otherwise acknowledging the obligations which remain outstanding and to be fulfilled in order to satisfy condition 7 of consent applications B04 to B0621, satisfactory and informed to the town solicitor, be adopted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Questions or comments? On the record, go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. Through you and to administration. Is there any timeline now, I guess, associated with this agreement that would kind of terminate this agreement potentially if things run out too long, similar to what the individual is facing right now? I just want to make sure that this won't run on forever either. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that that's a concern. The owner is very anxious to undertake this work and to create have those lots created. But in terms of timelines related to the drainage, the municipal drainage process, I would have to defer to perhaps Mr. Bartnick in that regard.
Mr. Bartnick?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Altenhoff. So it's my understanding that the property owner has made efforts in obtaining a permit from the county to undertake the stormwater connections. So there is a desire there to complete those works. With respect to the Drainage Act process, so an engineer has been appointed. There was an on-site meeting, and they are moving forward with a Section 4 report, which is the creation of a new drain. However, as council is aware, some of the timelines prescribed in the Drainage Act are quite lengthy. But we will continue through with that process, working with our partners at the County of Essex as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Altenhoff, okay? Good, okay.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Jobin, I think you had your hand up.
Just going to support the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councillor Jobin. Do I have support, Deputy Mayor McKitty? On the motion, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. I believe you're still on, I think.
I am.
This would be on the annual status report on Tecumseh Transit Service for 2021 and an update on the initiation of on-demand pilot program. So I'll call upon Mr. Jeffries again.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, there are two parts to this report. One is a review of the 2021 TTS, and the second is a status update on the on-demand pilot project that we are launching on March 28th and that we're very excited about. So just to begin with the review of the TTS, this is the 13th year for its operation. It began in 2009. It currently operates on a circuitous route with a 1-hour headway covering 30 kilometers and 43 stops. The town manages the service, but it contracts out the operation and maintenance of it to First Student Canada, the maintenance of the 2 town-owned buses, I should say. If we could go to figure 1 in the report, please. So this is a figure that shows the total yearly ridership. You can see in 2010, before we made that connection to the city of Windsor, ridership was very low. It was under 10,000. As soon as we made that connection in 2011, however, the ridership grew and continued to grow and sort of leveled off at a point of between 27 and 29,000 riders on an annual basis. Up until 2020, when of course the COVID pandemic hit, and ridership dropped dramatically. However, I should note that 2021 ridership of 14,668 was an increase over the 2020 ridership levels. Figure 2 shows this ridership on an average daily basis by month. And again, you can see how there's a comparison here between 2020 and 2021, and the peaks and valleys coincide with the various restriction levels through COVID. And again, you see that in the past 4 months, ridership has increased. It's begun to get back almost to pre-pandemic levels. Figure 3 depicts this total as a total monthly ridership as opposed to an average daily ridership. So it's very similar to figure 2. Figure 4 is the total ridership by bus stop. And I'll just highlight a few of the more significant stops. The red is, of course, the Tecumseh Mall, and it's by far our most popular stop. It represents 44% of passenger boarding. And that's followed by the stop at Southfield, which precedes the stop at Tecumseh Mall. So people are getting on at Southfield and going on to Tecumseh Mall. Then there are 2 green bars you'll note on there at stops 28 and 4. And those represent the Tecumseh Road Municipal Parking Lot and the Food Basic Grocery Store, respectively. The orange bar just above that green bar is the Zehrs Grocery Store. And then there's a purple bar right at the top above the red bar, which represents the stop immediately following Tecumseh Mall in the Southfield Drive. And you can see that the most popular stops are destinations like malls and grocery stores, but also areas of high density, which we're seeing continue to develop around the Southfield Avenue area. Figure 5 in the report shows the time of day where TTS is in highest demand, and that's at 2 to 3 in the afternoon, which coincides with school getting out. It can be mostly attributed to students taking the service at that time, and it's followed by the noon hour and the morning peak between 7 to 8 when people are getting up and going to work or school. Figure 6 shows the average daily ridership by day of week, and there's really no discernible difference between the days of the week from Monday to Friday. On Saturday, there's lower ridership, and that's due to schools being closed and fewer places of employment being opened. With respect to revenue, there was no revenue in 2021 as council authorized that the service to be offered free during the pandemic, and that was to keep our drivers safe, our ridership safe, and not having close contact and exchange of money. This lost revenue was offset by the Safe Start, the SRA funding that the town received. With the relaxing of COVID-19 restrictions now underway, the reintroduction of fees is currently being considered. But in light of the transition to the on-demand service, which is to begin on March 28th, and is going to include a month free as an incentive, we're proposing that this free ridership continue to the start of that on-demand and then continue for the month following it, after which we'll consider reintroducing the fee. So that's a summary of the 2021 service. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the status of the on-demand transit pilot project, which council authorized on June 22nd, 2021. A work program was approved at that time to establish a one-year pilot project for on-demand transit, which was partially funded by the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative. And this pilot project would replace the current fixed route TTS for the duration of the pilot project. And just as a reminder, on-demand transit uses computer algorithms in response to service requests that are made by riders initiated through an app or on a smartphone, or a web-based version of the app, or alternatively through a call-in service if the rider doesn't have access to a smartphone. And those requests in riding result in instantaneous routing. And so the bus will go only to where it's demanded to go, as opposed to driving around on a fixed route hitting every single stop. We initially targeted the introduction of this on-demand service in late 2021. However, due to COVID pandemic challenges, and then also challenges with respect to securing a call center service provider, it was delayed until later this month. And now that those restrictions are loosening and the call center service has been resolved, we're scheduling to begin on March 28th. We've retained Blaze Transit to develop the software solution, which is known to us as the Blaze Engine, and the app that goes along with that, and also to assist with the marketing and promoting of the service. Over the past several months, we've worked with Blaze to undertake a number of tasks, including establishing the operating parameters for the Blaze Engine and the app. And I'll just highlight some of those more significant ones. So trips can be made from 1 week in advance up until 45 minutes before the desired departure. Trips can be defined by a specific origin or destination, or by selecting a location on a map. They can be defined by either by desired departure time or desired arrival time, and can be made for multiple passengers for different ridership categories. Passengers can view a map that will show their walking itineraries from the origin to the boarding stop, and so from their dwelling to the boarding stop, and from the arriving stop to the ultimate destination, along with the real-time location of the bus. Payments will continue to be made through the fare box on the bus or through a bus pass. And initially, the fare structure is proposed to remain the same, aside from the 1 month free promotional period that I mentioned earlier. So as riders become accustomed to the new service delivery format. When the riders board the bus, they'll be required to show the bus driver a private code so that the driver knows that that's the rider responsible for the requested trip. And then at the end of the trip, passengers can rank their trip from 1 to 5 and add comments, which will be helpful for us in assessing the efficacy of the service. We also, over the past few months, had to identify stops and service areas. So in addition to the current 43 stops, we've reintroduced Sobeys grocery store in Lakeshore, which was a common request. And we've also included, which isn't noted in the report, but we've included the Fairlane Town Center on the south side of County Road 22, which was a former bus stop that had been removed for a period of time. So we've reintroduced that one as well. On-demand simulations were conducted to test the efficacy of the Blaze engine and the app. Staff was trained on the use of the engine and the app. And then there was internal testing conducted, and any glitches were identified and rectified. Then we got out on the route and actually tested the app as if we were the bus drivers, and again noted any glitches or anomalies, and Blaze rectified those for us. We've developed advertising, promotional, and educational materials, which include posters, flyers, social media publications, and an instructional video that will be on the town's website. Mounts were put into both buses for the tablets that the bus drivers will be following, and the call-in center, answer 365, was secured to receive an input ride request on a 24 hours a day, 24/7 basis, basically. And that's for riders, again, who don't have access to a smartphone. But there's still a little bit of work to be done before the 28th. We're going to be doing further testing of the app. We've got to deploy the promotional and educational material, and that will be beginning later this week. The training of the call center staff is to take place, and the training of the first student drivers is also to take place. And Blaze has advised that they'd like this training to take place as close as possible to the launch, so it's fresh in the mind of those people that are involved in carrying out this service. There will be a pre-launch test with the drivers. And then finally, on March 28th, we're going to launch the on-demand pilot project. We recognize there will be some challenges for both the transit riders and our service provider, First Student Canada, initially. And we'll work with Blaze to address those challenges. But we believe in time, this on-demand service will provide an enhanced service, as it has in a number of other communities throughout Ontario. So we're recommending that the pilot project continue to the end of 2022 as originally planned, at which time we'll evaluate it and bring back a report to council with respect to what we'll recommend in the future. So the recommendation through this report, Mr. Mayor, is that DS 2022-09 entitled Annual Status Report on the Tecumseh Transit Service for 2021 and the update on initiation of the on-demand pilot project be received, and that the current waiver of transit fares due to the pandemic be continued until March 28, 22, and further that transit fares be waived as an incentive to use the on-demand transit pilot for a 1-month period from March 28, 2022, up to including April 28, 2022, after which regular transit fees fares be reintroduced. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to start with Councilor Houston, Dowie, Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And I guess to Chad, thank you for the report and update on the on-demand. It certainly, it's an exciting time, and any new launch always, does have some kinks. But it's comforting to hear the amount of testing and work that we've done to get to the point that we are today. Looking forward to seeing how the our residents react to the system. Look forward to seeing how the program just kind of rolls out, and how it works in town. The one question I had, just as clarification, the on-demand, for our residents, they will request pickups and drop-offs only within the set stops that we have, right? It won't be picking them up at, their home, but they'll request a pickup, say, at Tecumseh Town Center, and they'll be able to get off of the bus, throughout any of the, stops in town, correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's largely correct. The system will have their address, so it will know where the trip is starting from, the home address, and it will indicate the nearest stop to that home address and direct the rider to begin walking to that, and let them know they have roughly a 5-minute walk to that stop or whatever it may be.
Okay, well, I look forward to downloading the app, playing around with it, taking a ride or two, right? So I just encourage everyone to check out the new transit and on-demand platform that we have, because it's an exciting time, and we'll have lots of learnings, from this as well. So thank you.
And at $2 a liter for fuel now, I think a lot more will be looking for transit. Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Chad. I really I echo what Councilor Houston mentioned. So exciting to see this happen. The prospect of a service enhancement that we can access more people in the long term. Certainly, the potential sounds like it's there. If we're not making a loop that doesn't need to be made, that conceivably we could even reach more households than we do today. That's actually one comment that I received from a resident in anticipation of this meeting, that they were hopeful that their neighborhood could be serviced. They formerly lived in Ward 1, now they live in Ward 5, and would very much, they miss the service. And so that's, I know I did assure them, or I mentioned it's not in the cards today, but we are studying this issue. And if there is a path to improve the transit connections, it would likely be through this program. So I had a couple of just some questions more on the kind of our year to year. So I remember last year we authorized an extension to the first student contract, and I'm hoping you could remind me of when that ends. And second to that, I am just through my normal conversations, understanding that there remains a desire by everyone involved to have a North Shore type of transit service. I'm wondering if you have anything to share on that, maybe something could be, what might be in the cards if there have been any discussions with our adjacent municipalities on that front as a possible expansion to our transit service.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dowie. So the contract for First Student does expire at the end of this year and coincides with the proposed end of the pilot project. And then after that, we will take a really close look at the how effective this program was, but we'll also keep an open mind to further discussions with our abutting municipal neighbors. And we have had those, particularly with the town of Lakeshore, which is also investigating transit as a possibility. So we look forward to having more conversations with them, and anything that can help to improve transit service delivery to our municipality and reach more people in a more timely and more cost-effective way, we're always willing to look at.
Okay, thank you very much. Supplementary, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chad. So on that, I guess thinking of the future of the service, I mean, we've had the stats, pre-COVID, which had showed, I call it a plateauing of our participation, and thinking what's the best way of delivering. I'm just so ecstatic that administration had the wherewithal to launch the on-demand service. I think it's a great way to establish a viability, or at least to try something new with the resources that we have. But that connectivity part of it with adjacent systems is something that I think it feels like I'm not sure if that's a political solution or if that's an administrative solution. Hoping, perhaps that's an unfair question, but I would love to know if there's anything that we could do as a council to maybe open some more doors to encourage conversations about that system connectivity.
Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Dowie. So I think that Chad's bang on. We're going to be having a look at the efficacy of the system as we move through the pilot project, and also keeping in mind to how how decisions are unfolding in adjacent municipalities. With respect to Lakeshore, as council is aware, we do have an intermunicipal committee that is chaired on our side by Councillor Jobin, and Councillor Houston is also on that committee. And we have brought the on-demand service to that committee for deliberation, as well as Lakeshore has reported out on its progress. So we do already have an established body composed of those two municipalities with elected officials to assist in evaluation of any potential for partnership there. With respect to Windsor, I think that we have had conversations at the administrative level, and we'll continue to do that. The pandemic has really taken a whammy out of transit everywhere. And one of the things that we are all hopeful for this year is a recovery in the service, hopefully aided by our on-demand transit, but just generally a recovery in the service. And everyone is looking to see how that unfolds in the coming months. So absolutely, if there's an opportunity for political influence or intervention, we have no compunction about bringing it first to the council admin meetings, and then based on the advice of the mayor and deputy onto to council.
Go ahead, Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the CAO. So I guess and perhaps you can, I can be educated on this, but it feels like certainly with this connectivity, especially with Windsor, that there isn't quite a first step, or at least it doesn't feel that there's been one in recent years And that it's like, how do we move forward to provide, say, that connectivity to Devonshire Mall? Like, I know we have the transfer point, but it's not exactly a convenient system for a user if it's 3 hours long. And I know they are embarking on a revamp of their routes with some federal funding that had been received. And so I'm feeling the time is right to look at that, provide a service back to our residents, to encourage transit and encourage transit use so that they can get to work or school or to shopping in a reasonable time frame through public transit. So perhaps if you could elaborate on initiatives with Windsor specifically, I'd be very much interested in that.
Absolutely. And through the mayor to Councillor Dowie, pretty much right before the pandemic set upon us, we actually did meet Chad, Jeffrey, and Brian Hillman and myself with the Windsor Transit Management to discuss some opportunities and to look at the possibility of a proposal with Windsor Transit. We also met with the town of LaSalle, who does have an arrangement with Windsor Transit for transit service within the town. So we had started along on that investigation, if you will, of a closer relationship with Windsor Transit. And be honest with you, the pandemic did set that back substantially. And when this opportunity came open through the federal funding for piloting an on-demand service, we thought we would, investigate that route as well, just to see what that might yield for us so that we had options to present with council. So I do anticipate now, to be honest with you, I haven't had the conversation recently with Mr. Hillman, but we certainly re-engage on the Windsor connection and see where we might pick up where we left off prior to the pandemic.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Altenhoff, I believe, was next.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to administration, I guess specifically to Mr. Jeffries. I'll put on my researcher hat here. I really see this as an awesome experiment. Specifically referring to this on-demand system that we're going to be kind of piloting. I would just encourage you. I mean, I think the Blaze engine is set up in such a manner that it's probably going to be recording a lot of data. Of course, we have to be mindful of kind of personal information and so forth. But I just encourage you, especially over the span of to the end of the year, or maybe even a bit further, is try to use that information and look at it its kind of fullest extent. I think it may overwhelm you at some times, but I think you may see that you're going to get certainly a lot of data, but a lot of information that on some of the points that were articulated, perhaps or raised by other Councillor Dowie, maybe you'll support some other initiatives, and also it being a pilot. Let's not concern ourselves with a few failures. I hope we all recognize that sometimes you gotta fall a few times before you can get up and run really, really fast. So please, I know it may frustrate some of our riders initially, but I think the long-term vision here is really to make a system that's far more efficient than what it is now, and ultimately improve the overall experience. So I think if we can kind of keep that focus, that'd be appreciated. I look forward to reading probably a very interesting report at the end of the year, perhaps a year from now. But I wish it all the success, and ton of data is going to be coming your way. So have fun with it. Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments on to Mr. Jeffrey? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Tonio.
Just a quick question to Mr. Jeffries. Electric vehicles, are we looking at, later on, I understand we're going through the pilot right now, but would we be considering electric vehicles in the future for buses? Do you see that path in the future?
Yes, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Tennille. Yeah, we're currently looking into that possibility because we're due to replace a bus in 2023. And there is some funding out there for the purchase of electric vehicles, but we have to do some further investigation before we can come back to council with the recommendation on that front.
Good to hear that you're looking into it. Thank you very much. Good job.
I know what our CAO will bring forward. I know, not that I can have a crystal ball, but go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Thank you. And further to that, through you, Ms. Mayor, to Councillor Toniel, as outlined in the report from PWES on the fleet, it is time for the town to do a little re-review of its fleet management strategy. So we are suggesting that that is kind of our next step, where we would look at the whole fleet right across the corporation, including transit, and sort out a way forward on that, including vehicle electrification. We're certainly cognizant of the approval recently in Mr. Anthony's capital budget to take advantage of partnering with the Essex Power Lines to establish 10 new charging stations at town facilities. So we're quite aware, and I believe that Kirby McCardle has already been looking into kind of the background for such a strategy. So it's in the works, and we're certainly, as Mr. Jeffrey outlined, researching the electrification aspect as well.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
I was right. Okay, any further questions or comments on Mr. Jeffrey's report? Can I have a mover and supporter? Councilor Tonio, Councilor Dowie. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Move on to legislative in our clerk services and the restricted acts of council after nomination day, lame duck provision. We'll call upon our director to summarize the report and recommendations. Ms. Moy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the Municipal Act has provisions under Section 275 that set out the actions of council which can be restricted after nomination day and or after voting day in the year of a municipal election. So specifically in Section 275, council cannot take action described in subsection 3, which I will summarize in a moment, after the first day during the election for a new council on which it can be determined that if the new council will have the same number of members as the outgoing council, the new council will include less than 3/4 of the members of the outgoing council. So the basis of determining this calculation is found in subsection 2, and that is after nomination day, but before voting day, the determination shall be based on the nominations to the new council that have been certified and any acclamations made to the new council, or after voting day, the determination is made based on the declaration of the results of the election, including any acclamations. So subject to these two subsections of the Act, there's only 4 areas which council will be restricted if they are subject to what is known as the lame duck provisions. And that is the appointment or removal from office of any officer of the municipality, the hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality, the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which had a value exceeding $50,000 at the time of the disposal, and making any expenditures or incurring any other liability which exceeds $50,000. But it is important to note that those latter 2 does not include items already approved in the annual budget. So it should also be noted that Section 275 does not prevent any person from exercising an authority of the municipality that has been delegated to that person prior to nomination day, which in this case is August 19th. And additionally, nothing in this section of the Act prevents municipality from taking any action in the event of an emergency. So as I mentioned, these provisions are commonly known as the lame duck provisions. And specifically what I guess this means for Tecumseh Council is that they will be subject to the restrictions in Section 275, when it becomes mathematically impossible for less than 3/4 of the members of the outgoing council to be reelected. And we need to be absolutely certain of that is less than 75%. So specifically, after nomination day, which is August 19th of 2022, but before voting day, October 24th, less than 75% of the incumbent members of council have been certified as candidates in the upcoming election and have not been acclaimed. So for the council, this would mean less than 6 members of the existing council are not running in the next term or not running for the different offices lame ducks would apply. Or after voting day, October 24th, less than 75% of the incumbent members of council have been declared elected to the coming council, either through the declaration of the results or through declarations by acclamation. So for Tecumseh, this again would mean less than 6 members of the existing council would be returning to the next term of council. So as I mentioned, council is permitted to delegate the authorities under 275(3) to maintain operations during the established lame duck council period. However, this delegation is required prior to the periods coming into effect. As there is possibility that the town is at risk for the lame duck council classification, it's recommended that delegation of authority be established so it can be enacted if required. And where no lame duck council classification exists, obviously the bylaw would have no effect. And the most common practice is to delegate the authority to the chief administrative officer to exercise the responsibilities in subsection 3. And we are recommending the passing of a bylaw to provide that delegated authority should council be in that lame duck position. But we would remind council that the CAO is already delegated authority for the recruitment and dismissal of employees, as well as for a variety of expenditures granted through the procurement bylaw, also in conjunction with the Director of Financial Services. So in the event there becomes a need for the Chief Administrative Officer to exercise any of the authorities delegated to her under the section of the Act, an administrative report on the particular matter will be given to the current council at their next following meeting. So in summary, Your Worship, this report is recommending that LSCS 2022-09 be received and that a bylaw be prepared to delegate authority to the Chief Administrative Officer with respect to the actions set out in the Municipal Act 2001, Section 275(3) during the period which council may be restricted from certain acts as set out in Section 275 of the Municipal Act.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moy. Then on the recommendation, moved by Deputy Mayor Bichetti, supported by Councilor Houston. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. All right, we'll move on to legislative Ms. Moy's purview on the award nominations, and I'll call upon our director to summarize the report and the recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. So council may recall last year we presented 2 reports to council, one in September regarding the call for nominations for the annual awards, as well as we reported out at the November 23rd special meeting, whereat the meeting was scheduled for the purposes of considering any nominations that were received for the Donnie Massender Memorial Volunteer Award, the Dr. Henry Bro Community Excellence Award, the 2022 Youth of the Year, and 2021 Senior of the Year, or 2022 Senior of the Year. My apologies. So as reported at that November meeting, there were no nominations received to any of these awards. And in accordance with the direction given to administration at that meeting, this report has been prepared to report out on that second call for nominations for these particular awards. So we did put out additional advertisements in January of this year in the local newspaper at the Essex Free Press, as well as on the website and social media. And we did do ongoing posts on the social media continuously during the nomination period. And once again, we sent out those notices to the charitable and nonprofit organizations, and they were shared with the committee members to promote the awards. And I'm happy to report that we do have nominations for all of our awards. And in particular, those nominations are outlined in the attachment to this report. I will note that prior to or subsequent to the preparation of this report, we did receive a nomination for the Dr. Bro Community Excellence Award, and that is for a Miss Anita Imperial. For the Donnie Massenger Memorial Award, we have 3 nominations: Linda Lacombe, Mander Matheru, and Edward Janice. For the Senior of the Year Award, we have another nomination for Linda Lacombe. And for the Youth of the Year Award, we have a nomination for Jocelyn Adams. Council was given an opportunity to review each of the nomination forms or nominations packages that were given for each of these nominees. And we're looking forward to some direction from council this evening on and consideration of awarding these nominations.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor McKitty.
Yeah, if it's proper, Your Worship, I'd like to start off with formally making a motion to for the nominee for the Dr. Bro Award for Anita Imperioli.
Okay, duly moved by Deputy Mayor McKitty, supported by Councilor Tonio. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just for process clarification, maybe the clerk can let us know in terms of notification. I know it's a public meeting this evening. I don't know if these individuals nominees are watching or not. Some of them may not even know they were nominated. What's the process of notifying the winners? And at this point, would you know in terms of recognition, would it be something in April or volunteer week or when we can meet in person? Are those plans done for these recipients?
So following this evening's meeting, we will make every effort to get in touch with the award recipients tomorrow, as well as letting the nominators know the decision of council. With regards to presentation of these awards, yes, typically they're presented at the Volunteer Appreciation Week, which is, I believe, the 3rd week in April. So we would be likely looking to have the presentations made by council sometime during that, one of their 2 council meetings during the month of April.
Okay, very good. And in terms of, like I say, in the past, we've had in-person meeting, we've had reception. So if it's something that council's able to do, I know right now we're coming out of the pandemic, we're loosening restrictions, maybe something in the fall or whatever. But I think it's important that we recognize these recipients and volunteers, and like we have in the past with reps from the different groups, volunteer groups that do so much for our community. So again, just a suggestion if we can look into that as well for this year.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Tonio.
Just a few comments concerning the Donnie Massenger Award. I know all 3 individuals, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Mander and Ed over the years.
If I can, Councilor Tonio, I'll call the question on the Bro.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, because there's a motion on the floor.
I thought we finished it. My apologies.
Okay. On the motion, any further questions or comments on the nomination? All in favor? Opposed, any? That's carried. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Tonio. Sorry.
No, my apologies again. Sorry, I thought we finished that. Again, I got to work with Mander in the Miracle 27 months. It was supposed to be for 1 day, but we actually worked for a month together. Very well liked person, very enjoyable person to be around. Ed, he's been a lifetime legacy in this community of helping out with kids with the bicycles and fixing them and donating things to the which is again now St. Vincent de Paul. Thank you. So on those reasons, I'd like to nominate Ed Janice for the Donnie Massenger Award.
Okay. Do I have support? Yes, Councilor Houston.
Boo.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Any further nominations? I know there's 2 there. I don't know if there's any. Councilor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I don't know if you want to do this as a slate of individuals / awards. But I'm happy to bring forth and recommend that the youth award be allocated to Ms. Jocelyn Adams.
Okay, well, I was dealing again with
Okay.
the Donny
Okay, so,
Messenger right now. Just hold that thought. And just calling if
Excuse me.
there's any further nominations. Okay, it's been moved, supported, all in favor. Opposed, if any, that's carried. Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I in my loss of train of thought there, I thought you were referring to nominations across any other awards. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your understanding. But I would like to nominate Ms. Jocelyn Adams for the Youth of the Year Award, please.
Okay, thank you. Duly moved. Do I support? Councillor Dowie. Questions or comments? Any further nomination? I think those are the only nomination. So on the nomination, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I believe the last one is a citizen, Senior Citizen of the Year. Councillor Jobin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will nominate Linda Lacombe, please.
All righty. Support, Councillor Tonio. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Just for those who don't know Linda Lacombe, she is a longtime serving treasurer for McAuliffe Park for many years, works behind the scenes and is a worthy recipient. So congratulations to Linda.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. All righty. Councillor Tonio.
I just have a comment. I'd just like to thank all the nominators that nominated these people. I know it takes some time out of their workload and to identify our citizens that do work hard and volunteer in our community. So I just want to thank the people that did the effort to nominate everybody. And I'd like to congratulate everybody that was nominated. Thank you.
No, it's a very good point, Councillor Tonio, because there are a lot of good volunteers in our community. There really are. And you know, we've seen that on many occasions when we've had to have special events or special issues. The Miracle 27 is an example of that, where hundreds of people come out and so forth. So it's a bit of work, as you alluded to, but again, it's nice to recognize the folks that give so much to the community, because you know the foundation of a community, it's the people, and it's the people that give so much to the community that make it what it is. And so we're very fortunate here in Tecumseh to have such a giving group of folks, whether they're snow angels or leaf angels, or people taking care of the elderly, picking up groceries for them. I mean, you hear stories every day, so it's good to recognize them, I think, and I'm glad that we were able to fill that. And these folks have done massive amount of work even during pandemic, and so kudos to all of them, and congratulations to all of them, for receiving these awards. So we'll move on to technology and client services. And it's basically our life cycle and 5-year capital works plan. So I'll call on Mr. Firth, our director, to bring forward the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council. So this report is our annual report that comes back to council subsequent to the budget and business plan being adopted by council. We come back with our life cycle projects for the year. So this evening, we're asking for the work plan to be approved in addition to the funds being allocated from that life cycle reserve in the amount of $209,000. with the projects listed throughout the report. So if you look back in 2005 when we established this life cycle budgeting, at that time, we benefited from technology being expensive at that time and then coming down in price over the years as far as the cost to implement technology. We're noticing that trend is starting to level off and in some cases increasing, as you can see in the ask this year. So this report is basically divided into two sections. The section one is the annual allotments for things that we do every year, like upgrades to one or two of our buildings, say for video surveillance or an AV boardroom or things like that. So those cycle out every 6 to 8 years. And then section two is the more periodic projects. So in this case, just I'll highlight migrating to Office 365 is in the work plan for this year. It's now subscription based, and with that came a little uptick in the cost of it's the cost of doing business, and we're confident that the collaborative tools within that suite will assist us corporate-wide, especially in these times when we still do have some of the work from home issues going on. Another big project this year is the server farm. We're 6 years in. This is something that was actually all of these at some point were touched upon in the studies done last year by Perry Group, the IT service review, the digital strategy, and the business continuity plan. All reinforce what we've been doing here and with these dollars that are attached to some of these items. So our main servers here at the town hall and the DR site are being looked at this year, replaced this year, and then we're going to start the process. Another major one next year on the horizon, but we'll start the research and have already is our financial system, which is everything as far as payroll, AP, the property tax system, that kind of thing. So those are the top three, I think, in that section two that you've noted in the report. So again, our ask in the appendix for 2022 for the projects that I've highlighted there is $209,000. So respectfully, your worship, I'll turn it back to council for any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Firth. Questions or comments on the report? Go ahead, Councillor Ottenhoff.
Thank you, worship, and through you to Mr. Firth. I just want to ensure, are you quite comfortable with the, and I know we recently done a review, but are you quite comfortable with kind of allocation for necessary hardware and software for security purposes for our IT system?
Yes and no. It's always a growing issue within any organization, as far as if you're speaking to cybersecurity, et cetera. We have spent in recent years tens of thousands of dollars on not only studies, but implementing technology for multi-factor authentication or improvements to network security, that kind of thing. In addition to education to our staff, which is always a big piece of that cybersecurity, our staff and our end users, making sure they're aware of those types of issues. But on the operating side of the business, this is something you'll see under, I don't know if we segregated it this year as a separate line item, but professional services, or there was an uptick earlier in the main budget that was approved on the operating side for some of the things that I just mentioned. But you're right, in this one, inherent in this report, when you see upgrades to network components on the capital side, that all comes into play with that for sure. And it's something we're cognizant of and striving every day to do better at for sure in this day and age. I appreciate the question.
Thank you very much. And I guess my comment, can you ever be 100% secure? I think we all know no, but I think we're just trying our best to be proactive as best as possible. I certainly appreciate the efforts that have been undertaken and we've seen in the somewhat recent past. So I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable with that. So thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Firth. With regards to video surveillance, I know there's facilities involved, but are parks included in that allotment? And do we have video surveillance to your satisfaction, or can we improve in that area? And then even along Tecumseh Road with CIP in the future, is that something that where the town is looking into, or are we strictly just dealing with municipal buildings?
through your worship to the deputy mayor. So the first part of the question, do we have enough within the parks? It's kind of like insurance. You never have enough. You never have the camera right where the incident is going to happen or predict where it's going to happen. But I don't have the list in front of me, but we do have probably at least half a dozen parks that do have surveillance and cameras installed. And we have had some wins over the years with identifying the individuals involved in the incident, whatever the incident may be, all the way up to a conviction. Not to say the camera is always in the right spot, but we try and do our best. And through this capital budget, we not only replace current technology or current cameras or locations, if you will, but also expand those systems, not only within the parks that they're located presently, but in other parks as well. We try and pick up at least one new one every year or every other year with that respect. The second part of your question with respect to the CIP, I have been involved somewhat on the perimeter of that project with the development and the design of the pilot area that they're talking about. And they are looking at implementing some smart technology in the core for sure in the pilot area. Not cameras per se, but it would have the backbone and the infrastructure to accommodate that in the future. But that's something they're definitely looking at and building the CIP as a smart corridor and a smart area going forward. So we do have the infrastructure to do that and add it on at a later date for sure.
That's good. Thank you so much.
All right, any further questions or comments on the report? Hearing none, then I'd accept a motion by Councillor Houston and Councillor Altenhoff. No further questions. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on now to item 4A, which is the Public Works Engineering Services 22-06. That's our Riverside Drive multi-use pathway project. So I call upon our director to summarize the report and recommendations. I see we have Cameron with us too. So go ahead, Mr. Bartnick or Mr. Hedges.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And good evening, members of council. So the report before you today does have a recommendation that the report be received. The previous report for the Riverside Drive Trail was brought forward to council in June of 2021, where council approved the recommendations of the consultant, the commencement of the detailed design, and further individual meetings with landowners within the corridor. In August of 2021, the town was made aware of our successful application to the Canada Community Revitalization Fund, a federal program that will contribute $750,000 towards the Riverside Drive Trail project. And this grant program does have a completion date of December 31st of this year. So the project team has been communicating with adjacent landowners throughout the detailed design process. They've discussed options to remove, relocate, or replace features that are currently located within the right-of-way. The majority of these meetings were productive in nature and received a considerable amount of positive feedback. Attachment number 1 to the report does depict the 90% detailed design, which generally follows the alignment presented to council in April of 2021. With slight adjustments that have been made during the detailed design phase. Attachment number 2 is a visual comparison between the detailed design and the preliminary designs. So there is that comparison between the gray shading of the proposed and the red line work of the preliminary. The next steps in the process. We were going to post this report to council on the town's website and the project webpage. We are going to continue to finalize detailed design and get the tender documents ready by the end of March. We are looking to acquire property where required in April. Move forward with the relocation of utilities by the end of June. And looking at construction of the trail to commence into July. Starting in July and going into September. And these dates, we're aiming for July to September. It does give us a little bit of flexibility. If need be, we have to push that construction back a little bit. We're still well within the timelines of placing the asphalt, as well as the timelines for the grant program itself. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer any. And Mr. Hedges is online as well, if there's any specific questions to some of the ongoing discussions with the property owners.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bartnick. Mr. Dowie and Deputy Mayor Bichetti.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to both Phil and Cameron. First off, every conversation that I've had with an affected homeowner has been how professional the dealings have been between the town staff and the homeowner. And I want to sincerely thank the town staff for their diligence, especially, Cameron, I know you've been speaking to everybody. And I'd say everybody has raised how good you've been with them in the discussion. So I want to sincerely thank you for that. It is really, I just call it limiting the amount of feedback that I've ended up getting thanks to your hard work. So I have a couple of I call design questions, and most of them have to do with the intersections. So I've seen just in the 90% design that we have certain streets where there's a perpendicular intersection between an adjacent sidewalk and the multi-use trail. Then there are others that have a wider wrap or a wider curve, even though they also intersect with a sidewalk. And I'll use this St. Pierre Street as the most obvious example of that. And so I'd just like to know, what the effort is for the two different designs, why there's a special or a couple streets have that wider curve at the intersection, and others don't. I'm hoping you might be able to shed some light on that.
Through you, Your Worship, I guess I'll try to take a first stab at it. So I believe there are some areas that do appear to be a little different with respect to those, entrance onto the sidewalk. And I think each one is a little specific with respect to, whether there's adjacent sidewalks on the side streets. It's definitely something we can bring back to the consultants so they could double check and make sure that, we're trying to apply this in a consistent manner and making sure that, one, the crossings are AODA compliant, and two, that they do have the appropriate interconnection, not only with the pathway, but with the adjacent sidewalks as well.
Yep, supplementary.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Phil. Thank you for that. I guess just my final point is I see that there were 4 homeowners in the report that hadn't been reached yet. And I guess at this point, if existing homeowners who have been discussions have been had with continue to have questions about the design choices adjacent to their property, is it too late to continue those discussions, or are comments still welcome on now that they've had a chance to reflect and see the bigger picture?
Ms. Bartnick?
Through Your Worship, no, comments are definitely always welcomed, not only through the design phase, but as we move towards into construction as well. I believe it is our intent to also provide notices prior to the utility relocation stage, as well as prior to construction. We have worked on other capital projects, albeit perhaps maybe not a trail, but when we're looking at installation of service connections as well, right? You do have a percentage of property owners that are engaged, and then there are some that are perhaps not fully engaged during the detailed design, but we do make efforts right before construction as well as during construction to make sure that we exhaust every effort to communicate to them about the project, as well as try to gain feedback to see if there's any last minute, I guess, revisions that could possibly be made.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, do you have your hand up? I think earlier. Yeah, go ahead. Then Councillor Oldenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. Again, I want to echo what Councillor Dow was saying. Mr. Bartnick, in terms of the whole process when we started, then asked administration to consult with the residents along that stretch to come up with a detailed design. I think it was well worth the effort and time put in. I know Cameron's name came up quite a few times in terms of being very professional. And I want to echo that your hard work has not gone unnoticed. So good job in that regard. Just a question. I know it's hard on attachment 1, maybe through you, Phil or Cameron, if you can help answer. The width of the walkway, there was talk about a 3-meter walkway throughout. Are there any areas in terms of the detailed design with your discussions? Have you been able to reduce that to 2.7 or 2.4 meters to perhaps save some hedges or some trees? Have you been able to do that? Or is it 3 meters everywhere? So, you know, we're not sure in terms of when I look at the map here, it's hard to decipher that. But maybe if you could kind of give a general bird's eye view in terms of what the whole trail, if any of that was able to take place.
Thank you, through your worship, to Deputy Mayor Pacetti. I believe the intent was to try to maintain the wider cross-section of the trail throughout. There are some areas that are a little narrower, you know, one being closer to Les Bronx Road, where site conditions get a little tighter. What we could do, as you know, as far as posting the reports on the town's website and the project page, we could also work with the consultant to kind of identify, you know, those varying widths and those locations where it kind of varies between, you know, the 2.4 to 2.7 all the way up to the 3 meters. So that gives a better visual, I guess, to the to council as well as to the homeowners about the width of the trail.
Thank you, because I know there's some areas, like I say, if you can do a 2.4, you know, for a little stretch and then widen it to 2.7 and be able to save whatever structure it is. Not only that it appeases the residents, but it still has the intent of what the Riverside Trail was, putting something there that has to be there for future years. And I think, you know, from start to finish, I appreciate the effort that's been put in. And but I think there's got to be a time where we need to move forward and in terms of consultation, like Councillor Dowie mentioned, those 4 homeowners, at the end of the day, if we can't reach them and there's no consultation, we need to move forward. We're not going to stall this project because we haven't consulted with them. This was something that at the last meeting, I remember raising, and as council supported, that we're going to make that effort. And if the effort's not reciprocal, we're moving forward. So thank you again to everyone for your hard work.
Okay, Councillor Altenhoff, I believe.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I too wish to articulate and kind of echo the point of the professionalism and the engagement that the town staff has given to some of the residents, certainly who contacted me and had some concerns. So to Cameron and Phil, thank you very much, and to others who've been involved. I think certainly our residents have really appreciated that, and I think you need to hear that. That being said, I have previously voiced all the concerns that I raised with regards to this, and I have to be honest, it is quite sad to look at these prints quite close and see the amount of green space that's going to be dropped down, while looking on the north side, the significant amount of gray space, excuse me, that exists there. So I leave it as that. Thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Not to sound repetitive, but I certainly want to echo, you know, the comments of how professional our staff has been, and thank you, Cameron. It's not easy at times, and you know, but I think maybe you should be chief negotiators on a world stage, you know, and be able to do all of this, but what certainly is very well appreciated by members of council. I know that the calls have really been reduced, as it was echoed by Councillor Dowie. And the response, usually if I did have someone, the response back from administration was quick and certainly very precise. So very appreciated by members of council for that. So with that, if I need a motion to move and support the report as presented. Deputy Mayor McKetty, Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Public Works, again, 2022-07, 2022, supply various vehicles. So I'll call upon the director and certainly the manager to summarize the report and recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. Definitely would like to recognize our manager of Public Works and Transportation, who's with us tonight. That's Mr. Kirby McCardle. So we're gonna kind of do a joint presentation this evening. I'll start it off, and then if I may, I'd like to hand it over to Mr. McCardle for a few words as well. So the town has implemented a fleet replacement schedule to efficiently manage the town's fleet in a cost-effective manner. And this schedule is used as a guide for purchasing new vehicles and equipment in the designated years. Prior to replacing these vehicles, inspections are conducted to confirm the timing of the replacement, and the reevaluation of the type of vehicle for replacement is considered to ensure the new replacement vehicle best serves the needs of that particular division or department. In accordance with the schedule and in consultation with other administrative departments, we do have 12 vehicles or pieces of equipment that are recommended for purchase in 2022. These include one tractor and one RTV with a salter and a plow for public works and transportation services, one truck, one tractor, one trailer, two mowers, and one golf cart for community and recreation services, one truck and one trailer for water services, and one command truck and one aerial platform truck for community safety. Following council's approval to purchase the recommended vehicles and equipment in the amount of $2,362,000, requests for formal quotes for the supply of various vehicles, or RFQs, will be prepared and advertised in accordance with the town's purchasing policy. Subsequent to those purchases and receipt of the new vehicles and equipment, the replaced vehicles and equipment will be declared surplus and sold at auction in accordance with the town's purchasing policy. 15 years ago, and I'm just going to build on some of the comments that Ms. Evans gave earlier this evening. So about 15 years ago, the town conducted a fleet review with the assistance of an external consultant. While this review is updated annually, it is now time to prepare a fleet strategy that is forward-looking and considering innovations in the auto industry with a focus on electric vehicles. And if I may, Your Worship, I'd like to ask Mr. McCardle to say a few words as well.
Yes, thank you, Phil. Your Worship and members of council, just building on Phil and the CAO's comments from earlier. Electrification of the vehicles within our municipal fleet is certainly an initiative that we are actively reviewing as the EVs come online and more technology is released. Administration is looking for opportunities to add this technology to our existing fleet, and in time we will be replacing the correct vehicles at the optimum time with this new technology, and we strive to be active leaders locally in this EV vehicle shift within our municipal fleet. Also, with Essex Power's recent commitment to partnering with the town to establish its local EV charging infrastructure and the automotive push towards these electric vehicles, the town certainly positioned well to introduce this technology in our fleet. Ford is just beginning to roll out vehicles that can be incorporated in our fleet, and General Motors and Stellantis are not far behind, with other manufacturers getting on board in the coming years of 2023 and 2024. With that, I'm certainly available for any questions with regard to this year's equipment and vehicle pickups, and we certainly are, I welcome any comments or questions about moving forward with electrification of the fleet in the coming years.
Okay, well, certainly, thank you. And I know I've had that conversation with our CAO and she put me on the straight and narrow on that, but I'm really pleased to see that we're gonna, obviously, after 15 years, it is time to reevaluate our fleet. Do we have the right amount of vehicles, or we have how many vehicles to drivers, all of that stuff. I think it is something that we need to review. There's no doubt with, and the concerns moving forward is, I hate to see what the fuel budget's going to look like at the end of 2022. And especially now where none of us around the table, when this budget was being developed, that we would anticipate that diesel fuel would be $2 a liter. And it might even go beyond that. And so the electrification, I think, is the right thing. We're putting infrastructure into the community to serve our community. And I think it's just the beginning in terms of these stations, on municipal property. The private sector is certainly going to start to be engaged. And there was huge announcements from even the federal government, establishing thousands of these units across the country. And so I think the timing is perfect for us to kind of refresh, in terms of our fleet, what it's going to look like, even to the point where even the heavier vehicles, I know that Detroit Diesel are looking at big tractors now with dynamic braking and electrifying rear axles. So it's coming in those terms. So hopefully we'll be able to start greening our fleet and start reducing our carbon footprint in terms of transportation within the community. I don't know if you heard earlier, but I know Councillor Tonio had mentioned about as we replace our bus, should we be looking at electric and so forth. So those are really good opportunities, and I know we've done a great job in managing our fleet over the years. And with life cycling, that we were able to certainly achieve that. But now it's a new era, and I certainly want to thank administration for having a conversation about greening our fleet. Any questions or comments? I think it's pretty straightforward in the report. Then I need a motion to adopt the report that's been presented. Councillor Houston, and all right, Council, I got a mover. I need a supporter. Councillor Dowie, thank you. No further questions or comments on the report. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And while we have you here, Mr. McCardle, as well, there, Kirby, I want to thank you as well. Is that we've had kind of a rough winter in the last little while, but certainly want to extend our thanks to the crew. And I still get these emails and social media saying that if you want clean streets, don't worry, drive through Tecumseh. And in terms of snow, so extend our thanks to our crews. They do great work.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll certainly pass that on. They do strive to work very hard, and they take a lot of pride in the service that they provide.
Well, it shows, and we thank them. Okay, so that's I duly move. Yeah, it's been moved and passed. All right, next is Active Transportation Fund, the multi-use recreational trail, L'Esperance Road to Little River Boulevard. Call upon the director to summarize that report and bring recommendations forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before I get started here, I'd like to ask Sean to see if he can pull up. Oh, he's already beat me to it. So this is attachment number 1, I believe, depicting the limits of the proposed infrastructure for the grant funding. So just a summary of the report. The Active Transportation Fund is a national merit-based contribution program intended to support projects that improve active transportation infrastructure across Canada. Capital projects will be funded up to 60% with no maximums. The application deadline is March 31st of 2022, and all projects that receive funding must be completed by March 31st, 2026. Administration is recommending the multi-use recreational trails on Les Bronce Road and Little River Boulevard, as it was the ideal candidate and had regard to the eligibility and merit criteria identified for the program, aligned with the town's strategic priorities, and was identified in the town's Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the Transportation Master Plan, and the town's official plan. So there are 3 different segments to the multi-use recreational trail. The first being on Les Bronce Road from Riverside Drive to McNorton. We are proposing a 3-meter wide asphalt trail, approximately 1.8 kilometers. The grant program does fund and will fund the installation of street trees, enhanced crossings at the intersecting streets, which would also include street lighting improvements for enhanced safety. The second segment is on Les Bronce Road from McNorton to First Street, and this will entail a minimum 3-meter wide concrete trail or promenade, as often referred to, for 380 meters. It will include features identified as part of the Tecumseh Road Main Street project and will connect to the ongoing works at the Les Bronce Road via rail project. It will include installation of street trees, urban trees and silver-cell units, enhanced crossing at intersecting streets, and also include parking lot improvements and kind of reconfigurations between McNorton and First Street. The last segment, the shortest of the 3, is the Little River Boulevard, and that's between Les Bronce and Gautier Street. We are proposing a 3-meter wide asphalt trail for about 310 meters, installation of street trees and enhanced crossing at the intersecting streets as well. It's important to note on this section that the town's transportation master plan identified this segment of road to have on-street shared facilities. So for example, sharrows that are painted on the road. However, since 2017, the City of Windsor did install a trail from Blue Heron Lake over to Gautier. And the construction of this trail within this segment would interconnect not only the Les Bronce Trail, but it would interconnect it over to the trail system within the City of Windsor. The financial implications, so that we do have a total project cost of 4.36 million, with federal funding at 60% of just over 2.6 million. And a cost share for the town of Tecumseh at just over 1.7 million. If successful, this project would be incorporated as part of the annual Public Works and Engineering Services Capital Works plans and funded through the Infrastructure Reserve. And it is anticipated to commence design in 2023 with construction following in 2025. That's the end of the presentation. I am available for any questions if there are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bartnick. Any questions or comments? Councillor Holtenhoff and Councillor Dowley.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Mr. Bartnick. With regards to the current on-street cycling, kind of portion of the road, I'll say, that exists on Les Bronce, that would not be impacted by the implementation of the trail that's proposed, would it?
Through your worship, no, that is correct. It will still remain as is. Yes, it was. I believe when the implementation of the on-street bicycle lanes was rolled out, there were some figures and cross sections of the road depicting a future multi-use trail on the west side of Les Bronce.
Perfect. I do recall that, and I appreciate now it's coming to fruition. So this will help I guess, differentiate, the appropriate traffic on, each of those kind of lanes. I can tell you, I know that a number of times I've cycled where I've seen people either walking in the biking lanes or riding very casually. So, and that's fine, but I think this will help alleviate that issue. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to the administration. I want to certainly thank the administration for identifying this opportunity, and presumably to our member of parliament as well. I can remember back in 2014 knocking on doors, and I mean, housing was the #1 issue back then, but not far behind was, especially for families, was this matter of connectivity. Wanting more trails and more places to walk, and to see, really the fruits of that interest come upon us like this, where we're making some very visible and meaningful headway with respect to what residents had been asking us to do, is just, I'd say, one of the most rewarding things that I could say about my time on council, that we're realizing what residents have asked us to do, and this is certainly in keeping with that. So I look forward to seeing what comes. Ideally, we'll be successful in these applications. Undoubtedly, we will also have some of the same circumstances as with Riverside. Inevitably, there will be conflicts and issues addressing site-specific matters. But ideally, this, we've learned a lot from our experiences in the past, and that we'll be able to find a successful implementation. And even I recall during the discussion of the on-street bike lanes, many at the public meeting approached me and said they would prefer the multi-use trail. But then, since the bike lanes have come on, the number of complaints has been, I think, 1 or 2, and they're more related to the stop sign at Clap than anything else. So I'd almost say that this facility I expect it to be heavily welcomed based on my earlier feedback received. And thank you for the opportunity, and let's see, or I'm looking forward to supporting making the grant application to see if we can make this additional headway in our network.
Okay, any further questions or comments? It is nice, though, that we have a wide municipal right-of-way in that area. And for a lot of the folks, if you go back in history, that was actually the old steam car line Hiram Walker built was on that right-of-way. And so here we are, going to put another active transportation within that corridor. But I think it's nice that now we're connecting neighborhoods, and I think it's going to be well received, and it's going to be great for young families and others, to create the walkability and connections to the city, to Ganacho Trail, to all the way down to Lakeshore eventually, which is terrific. So I'm looking forward to see what the general public in terms of their certainly their comments, but all in all, let's continue to build on our active transportation. Okay, so then on the request is basically to authorize the active transportation fund multi-use recreational trails, Les Bras Road, Little River Boulevard be received, and that administration be authorized to submit an application to our federal government for funding under the Active Transportation Fund, the ATF, for future commitment to install a multi-use recreational trail on the west side of Les Bras Road from Riverside Drive to First Street, and on the north side of Little River Boulevard from Les Bras Road to Gautier Street. And further, that the chief financial officer be authorized to sign any required documents necessary to complete the application and any subsequent documentation to the ATF. So on the motion, moved by Counselor Altenhoff, Counselor Dowie, support. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to bylaws, Madam Clerk, if you want to take us to the bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. So bylaw number 10 on the agenda this evening is the consent agreement with Dana Azar as reported on earlier. Bylaw number 2022-11 is an amending bylaw for the appointments to the Cultural and Arts Advisory Committee. We've had a couple of members that have resigned. Bylaw number 2022-12 is a bylaw to once again authorize the annual gas tax funding for public transit program. And bylaw number 2022-13 is the amendments to the procedural bylaw as previously reported on. And we're respectfully asking for first and second readings to these bylaws, and if appropriate, third and final.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Two readings. Councilor Jobin and Councilor Altenhoff. On two readings, questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And third reading is now in order. Moved by Councilor Tonio, Councilor Houston, support. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Unfinished business, members of council. Councilor Dowie.
Well, thank you, Worship. I just wanted to thank the administration for actually putting forward a number of updates in this. I think I'm pretty excited to see the report about the architectural the architect being hired to work on the library facility, as well as a number of the issues being brought forward under our comprehensive zoning bylaw change. So that includes short-term rentals, the trailer issue, property standards, and the nuisance odors and lighting from cannabis. So those are all great things to see in motion, and I appreciate that update being given to us tonight.
Okay. Any further business? Hearing none, then any new business? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, on behalf of council, and I have three daughters, and as today is International Women's Day, and we have our CAO leader, Madame Ms. Evans, and we have Councillor Jobin, we have the clerk, we have many wonderful women that work and are employed in the town, but also in the residents. I want to just commemorate and acknowledge them on this special day. This was a day that was set up by the UN to commemorate the social, political, and economic achievements of women. Women in different parts of the world use this day to come together to celebrate one another and rally for equal treatment and representation. So happy International Women's Day to all. And we got to keep in terms of showing that and promoting that whenever we can.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, and certainly want to echo it's used to be an old saying that the key to the family is the mother, and it's so true. And or you can call it the glue that binds the family. And we see so many dynamic women in roles of leadership, from prime ministers to presidents to vice presidents to CAOs to directors to doctors, nurses. It goes on and on, and at times, it's still to this day. It's unfortunate. It's 2022. And there's still battles to be and biases to overcome, in the name of equal opportunities and equal justice. But I'm very proud of the town Tecumseh, our council, although we've got one strong female counselor. But we do believe in opportunities and equal opportunities, to women. And when you look at our senior staff, whether it's the CAO, our clerk, our manager of culture, and Ms. Bonici, our deputy clerk. Wow, we've got quite a team, and it's nice to see that. And so thank you for bringing that up, Deputy Mayor McKetty. And most importantly, I don't know what in terms of my successes in life, it was for my partner, my wife, who's very strong-willed and a great supporter, and to my own mother. She was a hockey mom and a soccer mom and an everything mom, going back. So a lot of the credits that we men, we share that enthusiastically with our partners. And so it's their day. And again, congratulations to all of the women, and it's nice to be recognized by the world. But for us, we need to do a little bit more hard work to make sure that equality is what they say, equality, and remove all of the obstacles and the biases as we move forward. Any further new business? Okay, none. Then if I could have a confirmatory bylaw to acknowledge the proceedings of our meeting this evening. Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And any notices of motion? None declared. So our next meeting, members of council, will be held on March 22nd, 2022. 4:30. It's our start with our in-camera meeting, followed by 3 consecutive public meetings at ZBAs on the 10th concession, 13354 Riverside Drive, and followed by 292 L'Esperance Road. And our final meeting of the evening will be our regular council meeting with a 7 o'clock start time. So with that, if there's no further business, an adjournment is certainly in order. Councillor Houston and Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And once again, members of council, I certainly bid you good night, but acknowledge thanks for your indulgence, and as well to our administration, and for those who are watching or streaming from the comforts of home, good night.